careful, please. That elite was an ultra.
If you don't raise your children, one day we might have a prophet who is raised by an iPad. And what would that mean for us as a people? This is an idea that I've decided to dub the Skibidi Prophet, because someday that generation will inherit the reins of the gospel. And honestly, this should be a hopeful thing, because there's this Pew Research study, and it shows that the younger people seem to be pushing back against a lot of this propaganda to a far greater extent than the older generations. And so it should be a very hopeful thing. I have a lot of hope. But there is one thing that's concerning, and that is that it's only half of them. The other half is very far in the other direction. There's a split. Right now, we're in a church that is politically neutral. A church that is desperately trying to wrangle global interests when our local interests are very pressing. And I think that one of the things that we lack as a church is, I guess I could call it like specific conference. Specific conference, yeah. I think that's what I'll call it. General conference is very general. The topics that are discussed are very high level, very abstract. They are applicable to everyone on planet Earth. So applicable that they're almost applicable to no one. And that's maybe a little extreme, but I'll make my point here. These young people, I don't think that we're treating them the right way. We need to be including them on the strategy, because we live in a world of TikTok streamers and memes, and everyone has a political cause, a political angle, something for you to do. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. You know what I'm saying? So everyone's got that, and it's politicized a generation. And if we do not include them on the strategy, then they will go where they are included. They will go where they are included. There will be some streamer, some political streamer maybe. They're going to include them on the strategy. They're going to give them specific instructions of what to do, what to believe, how to act, how to dress, what types of jokes are funny. And at church, we're going to be discussing a general conference talk about joy and sharing vague analogies to one another for 20 minutes while everyone is on their phones. They can't wait to get back to scrolling through memes that actually make them laugh and actually make them feel something. This is a strange phenomena, but I feel lots of people can relate, and that is that there's like these videos of boys in like middle school or whatever getting together in the bathroom to all sing the Halo song. And it's like this very spiritual experience. And part of that is because the music is like based on, you know, like church music, but there's this shared experience, this shared struggle. You know, we all fought the grunts or whatever together. You know, we all wept for Cortana together. And there's this shared experience, this camaraderie that since the Boy Scouts was taken over by, you know, Disney Plus people, I guess we can call them, then where are they going to find that? Are they going to find that in talking about joy? I'm not so convinced. And this attitude of, I won't say disrespect, but maybe not including the young people on the strategy, it seems to go up to the highest level. And this kind of relates to what I was talking about, the sister missionaries and the YSA, but I was in this trial ward for the 18, like this age split where they split off the 25 to 35-year-olds. And Elder Gong, he came to visit the stake where this was under trial. And this was pitched to all the young people that we needed to go, that he was coming to talk to us about these changes. And I was really excited. We all woke up really early to go, and I got to see Elder Gong, shake his hand. He's very small in person, surprisingly small, and he seems really nice. I think that the rumors that he's a Chinese spy they're unfounded, but it would be really hilarious if he was a spy that married into that family or whatever. That would make me laugh almost. But he seems like a good guy. His talk was very weird to me. It made me feel very uncomfortable because the audience were these 25 to 35-year-old people, a lot of young men, right? And just the way that we were spoken to, we were talked to about AI and why AI is cool. Maybe we're going to get AI girlfriends, you never know. Just kidding. Bednar would disavow Bednar would disavow that for sure. But he made these little jokes about how he used to work with a guy named Wong, and it was Gong and Wong, and you got the wrong Gong, and you've gone Wong, and it was pretty funny, I guess. It was kind of strange. It was interesting to see his personality. But he did this weird thing where he told everyone to put a finger on their nose, like pointing at yourself. And then he said, "Be the vaccine for loneliness." And I was like, excuse me? Like, this is the 25 to 35-year-olds, right? The demographic of men who built the church, 25 to 35, right? You do realize, like, this isn't preschool, right? And I felt like a little insulted. And, I've got thick skin. I don't really care.
Quick editor's note. I totally forgot to mention that the whole topic of the age change wasn't mentioned once at this event, that we were told was the purpose of the event. So yeah, we just got a little lesson about noses.
This is indicative of a larger problem. Basically, if you do not include the young men, if you do not integrate them into society, into the village, then they will burn the village down. That's how it's always worked, okay? If you don't incorporate them, then they will dance in the ashes of the village, okay? So that's kind of how it works. And, these older guys, they didn't grow up after the internet. They didn't start dating after the invention of the iPhone. Things are so different now than they were then. And I sure hope they realize it, because when I'm in institute and the instructor is talking about the law of chastity as if we're in the rock and roll era, like Woodstock. And it's like, that's gone. That's going. That's not what's happening. Like, these young people that are growing up, they're not going to break the law of chastity. Not in person. It's never going to happen. Like, there's a small group of young men will be doing it serially in person, but the rest of them are not going to be. Like, don't you get that? And I talked to the instructor about that, and he said, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of it, but that's where the trends are heading. And that's not just in the church, that's everywhere. It's that no one will be breaking the law of chastity in the future. I mean, as bad as breaking the law of chastity is, it's not as bad as not having children, not having marriage, because we can work with illegitimate children in the nursery, provided, their parents get married and take care of them. We can work with that. We can work with, we can forge a marriage date a little earlier than it was. We can do that as long as there's loyalty. We can say, oh yeah, they definitely got married in this year, not the year after. We can work with that. Oh, another thing about Institute and them not understanding the youth. I went to this, first of all, every single Institute class is just lecturing you about getting married. And I was complaining about this, and this guy said, maybe you would just feel better about it if you actually went to the dating class, dating and healthy relationships class. Because then you wouldn't feel like they're shoving it in, like, under your nose or whatever, right? And I was like, okay, that's a good point. And this guy, he seemed like he's like a social person, more than me. So I said, that's maybe a good idea. So I go there, and within 15 minutes, I'm already getting lectured about hypothetical dishes that I hypothetically didn't do in a hypothetical marriage, where my hypothetical wife is hypothetically unhappy. Reminds me of that Flight of the Conchords skit. Me and my wife, we chose to imagine our children. Oh, your wife isn't real. Oh, yeah, they take after their mother in that regard. That whole thing. And that's just how I feel about it. It's like I'm being nagged from an alternate dimension. They're whispering. I can hear them. They're already here. The instructor, he's like, wash those dishes. You better wash those dishes. And ladies, when your husband comes home from work, don't unload. Don't tell him. Don't just complain about how bad your day has been, okay? And I was like, what the heck? It's like, if we're going to talk about the number one complaints about relationships, we all know what they are. We've all heard it. We know that wives don't like it when their man doesn't help them a little bit around the house with the chores. We know that. That's the number one complaint. And we all know what the number one complaint that men have about their relationships is. And it's not about their wife unloading their baggage when they get home. Okay, that's not what it is. So let's not pretend. And these YSAs, they're not helping. They're not helping the problem. I already talked about that. But honestly, we might need to break out those mild barley drinks. It might be a better chance of getting people together, Maybe that would be a better strategy. And that's a joke, but when the temporary destination becomes permanent, we got to think about some drastic measures to shake things up. And so, yeah, I just worry for these men who aren't taken seriously, who aren't given any respect. They will go to David Goggins to get the type of messaging that they need to hear, because they're not getting it at Institute, okay? The people who disagree, the people who want to change the church for the worse, they're willing to take drastic measures. There's a lot of these Richard Ostlers, and there's a lot of people who want to play center ball. And outside of that, you just have, like, I don't know, schizos screaming into their mics, their $10 mics or something, maxing out, bottoming out the audio or whatever so that it sounds aesthetic. W-aura. But yes, if we do not include these people, they will find a Discord server or a stream or whatever where they feel included, where they have purpose, they have actual tasks. Go to this college, show up at this event, fight, 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 all that stuff. That's the messaging they're getting elsewhere. And I think that a 6-month spread out general conference and then bi-weekly super high level discussions where we're not even really in the same room together. We're just kind of like, well, you know, I think that it's like a good talk because it's like good and stuff. And, you know, like if you're like a smoker and you're like trying to quit smoking, then like I like to think about this talk. It like gives me hope and stuff. Smoking? What are you talking about? No one here is a smoker. We know what you're talking about. Can't we just say it? Okay? Wake up. Like let's be in the same room together. We all have a lot in common, okay? We have much more in common than we have different. We're all like third cousins, okay? Why are we acting like we're total strangers? You know, we got the Master Chief series with Liev Schreiber's half brother. You know, Liev Schreiber, that guy with his beautiful daughter. He's gonna be the Master Chief, and he's gonna take off his hat or his helmet, and he's gonna sleep around. And it's like, Master Chief is like basically Jesus Christ, okay? His name is John 117. Okay? He has dedicated his life towards defending humanity. He loves only one thing, which is a woman who doesn't even exist, okay? He doesn't sleep around. That's blasphemous, okay? And these are the types of spiritual attacks that the youth are under. And that sounds silly, but it matters to them, even if they aren't conscious of it, you know? When I go to work, or at least when I used to be going to work in an office, every day people would say, you know, I watched the Master Chief video or TV show, and it was better than I was hoping. I mean, I was worried it was going to be really bad, but it was a little better than I was hoping. And it's like, that is the sound. You know, that's what the Christians in Spain said when their churches were turned into mosques. You know, I was a little scared of what the services were going to be like, but, you know, they still accept the Old Testament. They still think that Jesus is a prophet. Oh, well, that's nice. Cool. So, crusade? So that's Master Chief. He doesn't sleep around, okay? He doesn't even take off his helmet. All he wants is weapons. That's all he has desires for. Let's see. Oh, a guy told me a story about when he was first endowed. It was like the few weeks he was first endowed, he had been going to the temple, preparing to go on a mission. And the prophet, Joseph Fielding Smith, took them up to the double priesthood room with like the, you know, it's got like the pulpit on both sides. He took them up there and said, do you guys have any questions about the endowment? Of course, they didn't have any questions, but they were asked. And that's just like shows a lot of trust for these young men that I don't know if that's still there. I sure hope it is. Anyway. So I may be a little bit of a doomer, and I'm not trying to be, but we've got these problems ahead of us, and we just need to stay focused. People are saying, what do you mean there's traitors? What do you mean there's traitors? Look, as Michael Burry once said, I might be early, but I'm not wrong, okay? So if you don't agree with me, agree with that. But my sources say that Bednar will be a prophet for a very long time. And he hasn't changed his haircut since, like, the First Estate or something. If you are feeling discouraged or distressed about all of this tumultuous stuff, know that Bednar will be the prophet, and he doesn't even change his hair. His hair is immortal, like the machine, right? The machine. And I like Bednar. I still haven't watched his appearance at the that digital pesticide conference with that snake. What's his name? But I do like the idea of calling the church a global empire. Now that's cool. It's pretty cool. But it is a problem because a lot of times when you ask about these questions, why did this change? Why did that change? Well, we need to be accommodating for all cultures. Accommodating for all cultures. Well, I don't know. I think that if we have to sell our birthright to be accommodating for all cultures, is it worth it? So, yeah, the young people, they're not talking about what Russell M. Nilsson says. They're talking about what Jordan Peterson says. They're talking about what Joe Rogan says. They're talking about what Elon Musk says. All these different people. People talk to me about Jordan Peterson at church and bring him up. In bishops' interviews, the bishop's bringing him up with me. Oh yeah, you should see this Jordan Peterson video. People are excited about that. And it's like, Joseph Smith is cooler than all of them. He's cooler than all of them. Read these accounts. The young men of the Nauvoo Legion, he draws his sword and he says, I am willing to die for you. Will you die for me? Yes! Yes! He says, then my blood will flow for you. It's really cool. The accounts are really cool. Or there's another one with the Mormon battalion. They're all sitting around. Joseph Smith says, all right, fight circle, let's go. We can't be sitting around. This is bad for our souls. This is bad for our bodies and our spirits. Fight circle. And then Sidney Rigdon, he's an older guy, and he's like, Joseph, you can't do this. You can't start Fight Club on the Sabbath. That's the first rule of Fight Club. You can't do Fight Club on the Sabbath. And Joseph Smith looks at Sidney and he says, Sidney, we're doing Fight Club, and you have to fight. So Joseph fights Sidney Rigdon, and he wins, obviously. The men, they love it. Sidney Rigdon didn't really like it. I think his jacket got ripped or something, but that's awesome. That's like a type of man that doesn't exist in the world anymore, and it is awesome. Okay, I love hearing these stories because Joseph Smith is funny. Joseph Smith is 25 to 35, right? A lot of things are going to make these young people who are going to save us, they're making them feel alienated, and that is a problem. When every piece of media from your childhood has been remade to satisfy global interests and diverse peoples, we'll say. The type of media that's being made now is almost to punish those who enjoy it. I feel punished when I see the How to Train Your Dragon trailer. They're punishing me. And, when I go to the temple, I went to the St. George Temple recently. A lot of my ancestors helped build it. And I hadn't really seen the renovations yet, so I wanted to go see that. And there are 2 paintings in the temple that people actually look at. And those are the ones that are in the way when you're trying to go into the dressing room. And in front of the men's dressing room is a black man with someone's hands on his head. And in front of the women's dressing room is a black woman with someone's hands on their head. And as someone who is very tired, fatigued of all of this How to Train Your Dragon, Amazon Studios stuff that is going on, I go to the temple to avoid that, to get away from that. And when Brigham Young said we're going to grow cotton in Little Dixie for the co-op effort in Washington or whatever, the people who were picking it looked a certain way. They didn't look like a Netflix adaptation, okay? They looked like a Mormon pioneer from northwestern Europe. That's what they looked like, okay? And my ancestors, they looked a certain way. And if you want to put those pictures up in the Ghana temple, I think that would be very appropriate for them. It would be very appropriate. Go ahead and do it. But please do not force this stuff down my throat. Who's ever decorating the art of the temples? Who's ever making these calls? Please stop. Okay? So anyway, those are my thoughts for today. Please raise your children. Do not let the iPad raise your children. Otherwise, someday, we will have a Skibidi Prophet. No one is going to raise them except for you. You know what's right from wrong. You can teach them to stand tall, stand in holy places, teach them to discern. Discernment is the #1 skill that will help them survive in the future, to tell right from wrong, to interpret information, to ignore noise, to see the truth that others can't see. So, yeah, that's the lesson for today. That's my thoughts for today. Not really a lesson, but so long.